Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning into the Ground and Pound cast. We are here to talk about UFC 325 that happened just this past weekend. I am once again joined by Nostradamus, and you know what? I think it's perfect that it's he and I on the episode tonight because he and I pulled some real Nostradamus stuff. We did something we've never done before. Roy, what did we do this past weekend that we've never done before in the MMA scene? In being a UFC fan, we had a first. What was it?
If you have been following this channel for any length of time, you know that we have never in the history of the channel gone 5 for 5 on our main card predictions. And last week, we both agreed about our main card prediction and knew we were either going to go 5 for 5 or 0 for 5. And we got them all right.
Correct. And I'll even add, before this podcast was a thing, just on Facebook, I was involved with a lot of MMA groups, and I started doing predictions just on a whim. I started it, and then they ended up turning into like a fantasy league thing that I didn't really get involved with because that was just too grindy for me. I just posted who I thought was going to win. So even though this podcast has existed for only, what are we, close to like a handful of months, almost 6 months, I've actually been doing predictions for years. When I say years, I'm talking 10 plus years. Not every single event. I went through periods of time where I wasn't following MMA as closely. I kind of went up and down with it.
But the point is, you're bad at predicting usually.
I wouldn't say I'm bad at predicting, but I'm saying that for like over 10 years, I've not at every event, but I started doing predictions over 10 years ago, and I usually go 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. I feel good when I get 4 out of 5. I've gone 1 out of 5, and that felt terrible. I've done that a few times. The last few events, until this past week, in the last few events, I've been getting 4 out of 5, and I felt good about that. But on average, I'm 2 out of 3, or I'm sorry, 2 for 3, 2 to 3, or 3 to 2, out of 5. So,
you know what the secret sauce was this week? Something else happened that we haven't even talked about.
What's that?
Nobody got poked in the eye on the main card.
Oh.
Maybe that's all it takes for us to be able to predict.
You're right.
It's no one getting fouled too badly.
You're right. I actually didn't even think about that. You're right. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe this was some special magic in the air. We have no eye pokes. Vince and Roy finally get their 5-0.
And Mars is in retrograde.
Okay, sure.
I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds cool.
Okay, yeah. Let's go with it. Mars is in retrograde. Venus is in the Gatorade, or whatever. I've heard all the funny little quips around that. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about these fights. You have the main event, a rematch that a lot of people really didn't think needed to happen, but hey, it happened, right? Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. Volkanovski wins, unanimous decision. 2 judges had it 49-46. 1 judge had it 50-45. What's your take on this fight?
I really appreciate these guys. It's not often that you see 2 guys fight like this and take some of the shots that they took, things that took them off their feet and that they bounced back up from, buckled their knees. And they look like they're genuinely enjoying themselves throughout the entirety of the fight. I really think that Lopez and Volkanovski are those guys who their goal is to test themselves against the best. And when they meet a solid challenge, it genuinely excites them and fires them up. Right down to the last round of this, with 45 seconds left, and Lopez trying at his best to still get the armbar, Volkanovski getting out of it and taking the second to play to the crowd, and then going right into raining down ground and pound from behind him. This was a fun fight.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it struck me when they would end the rounds and both the guys were visibly smiling and going back to their corners. It just struck me as the ultimate in sportsmanship.
Yeah, these two have a lot of respect for each other. You know, this is their second fight, and we'll talk about a little bit more in that in a little bit. But in both of their fights, the lead up to it, the press conferences and all that kind of stuff, you see that they had a lot of respect for each other. There's nothing but respect between these two. They really like going to war with each other. It was a fun fight to watch, and you could tell at the end of it, even though Diego Lopez lost, he was still all smiles because he's able to go to war one more time with Volkanovski. But I think that there's something bad about Diego Lopez taking this fight and getting the result that happened, and this is something we've been talking about ever since this fight was announced, and that is now he's 0-2 against the current champion. It's really going to stifle his chances of getting another title shot anytime soon, and this is why we're saying for a very long time that as much as we like Diego Lopez, as much as we think he probably in the future, if you get him at his absolute prime, could, you know, be good enough to beat someone like Volkanovski, it's just too early to put him against him right now, because it was too short of a time frame between this fight and the last fight. He didn't have enough time to make the adjustments, so we didn't really think the outcome was going to be any different, and sure enough, that's what happened. This is the first time I've ever picked against Lopez since I've started following him. And now he's 0-2 against a champion. So the only other time, like we've had situations where, take again Volkanovski's, you know, the example here is the champion. Max Holloway got 3 shots against him, but you basically got to keep cleaning out everyone else below you to get that shot. It's really, really hard. And right now with the featherweight division, the current roster that we have, there's so many other hungry people that are coming up that Diego Lopez is just going to have to wait. And I don't see him getting another title shot until either A, someone beats Volkanovski, or B, Volkanovski retires. So my question for you, Roy, is what's next for Diego Lopez?
Yair Rodriguez. He's the only one in the top 5 not named Aljamain Sterling who can, who Lopez, or who doesn't have a fight booked. And I think that would be a heck of a competition.
Yes, and as we said before, those two have a lot of beef. Whenever they had their last fight, well, Diego Lopez and Volkanovski, that is, Yair Rodriguez was on that card, and Lopez and Yair almost got into it. They had to get separated at the press conference. I've never seen Diego Lopez mad. He's always very sportsmanlike. Even when he fought Jean Silva, who he didn't seem to like very much, he still kept it professional. Yair Rodriguez is the only person that brought out that unprofessionalism in Diego Lopez. He was ready to charge him and fight in the middle of the press conference, so there's fireworks there, and I think we need to make that fight happen.
Yep, and that'll make for a good follow-up. Let Aljo have the winner of it and see where things go from. Actually, the heck with Aljo. Jean Silva's ranked number 6. Let's schedule that madman again.
Against Diego Lopez, have a rematch between those two?
Well, whoever wins between Yair and Diego.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun. I think, honestly, I think Lopez beats anyone in the division that's not named Volkanovski. He actually had a pretty close fight with them, even though the judges had it 49-46 and one of them had 50-45. Sometimes it doesn't tell the full story.
50-45 is absolutely insane. There is no way.
I said it going into the whenever they're getting ready to announce it. I said you're probably going to have one judge give it 50-45 because they like to favor the home crowd people when we're in other countries. We've seen that a million times. We've talked about it multiple times on this pod. It is what it is. I personally had it 49-46, but the thing about whenever you have these decisions, even if the numbers are very spread like that, because 49-46 is still a pretty big spread, it doesn't mean it wasn't a close fight, because every single round we watched, even though we gave it Volkanovski, we give it to Volkanovski by just a little bit, just by a hair. Round 2, we give that one to Volk too, but just by a hair. And then I can't remember if it was the third or the fourth, one of the other ones, we're like, I think we're going to give this one to Diego, but just by a hair. Like these rounds, every single round was close. There was no round where one completely dominated the other. Even though, I don't know about you, Roy, but even though I had it 49-46, I still think that that doesn't tell the full story. I still think that every single round was pretty close. It was a very competitive fight.
Absolutely. These two guys went in there and they were so well matched, it made it hard to judge.
It really was. And that's why when we say it's hard to judge, I mean, there's a couple of rounds that were so close. Like I give it to Volkanovski by just a razor thin hair. If you gave it to Diego, I wouldn't be mad about it. And so then you would see something like 48-47. I still say 50-45 is crazy, but I'm not surprised by it because, again, how many times have we seen where we're in another country and they give, like we've seen before where I can't remember what event it was or what country it was. I think it was one of the last Australian cards where the guy lost 29-28 by 2 judges, but then the third judge gave him 30-27 win. I can't remember what fight that was, what location that was, but I remember we saw that, and it's like, that's clearly, hometown bias. You can't convince me otherwise.
Yep.
So,
well, you know what Dana said, if you don't want the judges making the decision, finish the fight.
Yep. And so we got to think about what's next for Volkanovski, and we have Leroy Murphy is booked against, who is it?
Evlov?
Oh, yeah, Movsar Evlov, who is the only person who's not named Volkanovski who's beat Diego Lopez in the UFC. It was actually, that was Lopez's debut match in the UFC. He lost to Movsar, who is still undefeated, but he has been very inactive the last couple of years.
Didn't he have an ankle injury?
Maybe. I honestly don't know. I didn't track that, but I know he's been inactive for a while. He fought like once in 2024. He didn't fight at all in 2025. But now he's booked against Leroy Murphy. And the winner of this fight obviously has to be fighting Volkanovski next. I think if we can't get the Yair Rodriguez fight for Lopez, I think the loser of that fight could go on and fight Diego Lopez, and the winner fights Volkanovski. That's how I could see it also playing out. Yeah. I honestly think, because I've watched Movsar Evlov. I have to mispronounce at least one name here. Even though he's beaten Diego Lopez, I think Diego's gotten so much better since then. I think if Diego fought him again, he would win. I also think Diego Lopez is better than Leroy Murphy, even though I think Leroy Murphy's amazing. I think he's a great fighter. I just honestly think Diego Lopez is that good, and that's why I think it's so unfortunate we put him against Volkanovski 2 times in this short of amount of time, because I think you messed up. You're going to have this guy permanently stuck at number 2 forever. Or technically number 1 if you go by how the rankings are done, because the champion's above the rankings. So he's going to be stuck at 1 or 2 forever.
Until he decides to change weight classes.
Yep. Or someone else beats Volkanovski and you have rotating title syndrome. Or Volk retires. Or eventually he might be able to pull off a Holloway where he keeps cleaning out the division and Volkanovski keeps beating everybody else. And it's like, all right, I guess we'll set up the third fight. It can happen. It's already happened. It's already happened, So now you mentioned earlier, if you don't want the Australian guy to get the biased judges' favoritism, you just need to finish him off, right? Well, apparently someone told Benoit Saint-Denis that he needs to do that because that's exactly what he did. How about you talk us through this fight he had with Dan Hooker?
Well, I'm going to say up front, I admit it, Dan Hooker is the better boxer. Unfortunately for Dan Hooker, most fights end up on the ground, especially when you've got a Frenchman who likes the fight to be there. And that was the tale of this. Hooker got a few good strikes in. St. Denis got him on the ground and proceeded to ground and pound him. Then you get to the second round. Hooker gets a couple good shots. Benoit St. Denis gets him down, spends like 3 weeks trying to go for an arm triangle, eventually abandons that hope and ground and pounds him into oblivion. Nobody that I like to see beat down as much as I do Dan Hooker. He is, I don't think a whole lot of the man, and I'm glad that the Frenchman had no quit in him.
Yeah, so you mentioned about that arm triangle. I had to laugh at that because you're right. I know Benoit Saint-Denis has a really good ground game. He's a high-level jiu-jitsu black belt. And I just know because, like, as someone who does jiu-jitsu myself, like, I like being in that mount position or sometimes side control. I like being on top and then attacking arms. And when you do an arm triangle choke, I mean, yes, it's a choke, not an arm lock, but it's still attacking the arm first, is getting into position. So what I'm getting at is, like, for big guys like me that love to do arm locks, that tends to be our bread and butter. Our go-to choke of choice is the arm triangle, because it's still you're attacking the arm and moving the arm, you're manipulating the arm, getting your head underneath the arm, and then squeezing where it becomes a choke. And so I love seeing someone going for an arm triangle, but I also know that, like, if I'm going for the arm triangle and I can't get it because of the way that they rotate their shoulder or got their elbow down or for whatever reason just not getting it, there are other options. I'm just a blue belt. It's one above white belt. I am by no means some amazing grappling phenom, you know.
No, you are the world's okayest blue belt.
I am the world's okayest blue belt. I haven't said that in a while, but I end up in that position a lot of times where I'm going for an arm triangle and I'm trying to squeeze it in, and more often than not, I do get it. But if I can't, I will reach around with my other arm to catch it, and then I'll come up to an arm bar, or I might rotate him to the side, then come up on my hips and then turn it to a Kimura. There's a lot of things you could do if you can't get it. But for some reason, Benoit Saint-Denis is like, no, I'm getting this arm triangle. When he said he spent 3 weeks trying to get it, it really did feel like that. You could ask Rick and Roy both. I was screaming at the TV like, dude, just go reach around with your other arm and set up an arm bar. Do something else. You're not getting this arm triangle, man. You're just burning your own arms out. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't seem to realize, especially with an arm triangle, the way you have to squeeze, if you don't get it, it's actually easier to defend it longer than it is to apply it longer, because the defense for it, you got to just tuck your elbow down to create separation. And you could just brace your arm in that position and just hold it there. You don't have to like flex. To do the choke, you have to flex. So if we're in a battle where I'm trying to choke and I'm squeezing and you get your elbow down and you posture it to where I can't get it and I keep squeezing, my arm's going to burn out faster than yours. So I think that was going on with Saint-Denis. He just probably was just tiring his arms out trying to squeeze them as long as he did. And I don't know. I wish he would have gone for another type of submission from that position, because there's a lot you could do. I know it chains from that position, but he kept going that way for a while until he was like, all right, this round's coming to a close and I'm not getting this choke. Let me posture up and just finish him off with punches, which is what he did. You know, cool. I'm glad he got the win. It was
raining elbows.
Yes, it was nasty. And I will say this, it was a very good performance. I think most of Benoit Saint-Denis' performances where he wins, he looks really good. He's a guy that, like, when he wins big, he wins big. When he loses bad. Like, he was beating Dustin Poirier till he got knocked out cold. He got turned into hamburger meat by Moicano, but when he wins, he destroys people. That being said, I still see some inconsistencies in his game. He immediately called out, when the fight was over, he called out all the top dogs in his division. So he called out Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, and Max Holloway. I think that's the 4 he listed, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm thinking to myself, any of those guys would beat you. And I like Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he's very talented. I think he is just outside of those guys. But I think all those guys, and probably also Paddy Pimblett, I think all those top 5-ish guys, I think all beat him. So he is now trying to put himself in a position where he's going after the title, or maybe putting himself in a title contender fight position. So he's like 1 or 2 away from a title fight. And unfortunately, from what I'm seeing, as you mentioned, Dan Hooker getting the better of him in the stand-up, and maybe trying a little bit too hard to go for something that wasn't working on the ground, and the few other performances where he was getting beat by people that are lower in the rankings. I think as good as he is, and I think he's going to rack up a lot more wins before his career's over, I think he's going to hit a wall when he hits the top 5.
I agree wholeheartedly. There's levels to this game, and he's got to level up or he's going to be stuck as a gatekeeper. Right.
And I don't want to see that, because I really am a fan of this guy. I think when it comes to, like, he's a military veteran. I'm a military veteran. He seems like he has good personality, and he is exciting. He is very skilled. I am a fan of the guy. But if he does not make some big adjustments, he's going to hit a very hard wall when he hits the top 5. All those guys that I just mentioned, pretty much anyone that's in those 5, he is just he's gonna get beat by. So that's all I got on that fight. What's next for Dan Hooker? Actually, I think we've already talked about this. We talked about this last week, so we can repeat it. What's next for Dan Hooker?
Let's see.
Patty Pimblett.
Oh, yes, that's right.
They both are coming off of losses. They both have beef. They're both somewhat closely ranked to each other. It's perfect matchmaking.
It is. It falls in your lap because if we can't see Patty fight Ilya, at least let's watch him knock Dan Hooker's teeth down his throat.
Yeah, I do think that's what would happen. I think Patty is leagues above Dan Hooker. I think Patty Pimblett is above Benoit Saint-Denis. But I think he's definitely better than Hooker. I think he has the better stand-up than Hooker, and he definitely has a better ground game. Like, that's not even in question. It's not even close. I think they're at least competitive standing. I still think Patty probably would have the better stand-up, but it wouldn't be like super one-sided.
We see Patty, his stand-up is going to be worlds better.
Maybe. We'll see.
Because his coach is going to start drilling into him to keep his stinking hands up.
Probably. You're very well could be right there. I still think even though we saw a not so good stand-up performance when he fought Justin Gaethje, I still know from previous fights his stand-up's still not bad, and his ground game is really good. And we know Hooker's ground game is not good. In fact, that's how the beef started, was Patty Pimblett talking about Hooker's lack of ground game. So if it went to the ground,
it makes it sound like Patty was saying something about his mom, Miss Hooker.
Right.
I wonder if he'll beat me up for calling her Mrs. Hooker.
Uh-oh. Be careful. They'll talk about his mama.
I'll hide behind Patty.
Yes. You're a pretty big guy, but so is Patty when it's not camp time.
When it's not fight time.
So, but yeah, like if it goes to the ground, dude, Patty would just instantly submit him. Because I think Patty Pimblett's ground game might be even better than Saint-Denis. So it's really good.
Agree.
It's really, really good. But anyway, we go ahead and move on to the next fight on this list. Two more lightweights. I think this was actually a pretty fun fight. This was one of my favorite fights of the night, and that is Mauricio Hufi against Rafael Fiziev. So this fight, I remember the first round being kind of close, and then Hufi just had other plans. I want to throw something out here real quick. All right, so Hufi wins, second round TKO. Now, there was a question that was out there about Hufi's his status with the Fighting Nerds, because it was announced that he had left the camp and he's now training in Australia with Volkanovski. So I didn't know if there was like some drama, some beef, and he just didn't want to be with the camp, or maybe he's just looking for a change of scenery. I don't know, because it was never said. So Hufi won this fight, and I saw just, I think yesterday, there was a video of Caio Baraiho, who, is like the leader of the Fighting Nerds, who was watching the fight from like a Dave & Buster's or something. He was watching it remotely with some other fighters, some other friends and stuff. He was in Nina Drama, and he was getting super excited seeing Hufi win. Like whenever Hufi was starting to get the flow and getting the knockdowns and was starting to swarm on Fiziev, getting ready to knock out that, secure the finish, Caio gets really excited and he's jumping up and he's screaming and he's cheering. He's really, really happy to see that. So that being said, I think that answers the question that was brought up a few weeks ago. Like, did he leave on bad terms? Is that why he left? Is there a problem? It doesn't look like that there is. It looks like maybe he was just looking for some cross training. Maybe he won the move, train with some other people. So it looks like he is still on good terms with those guys. I just want to throw that out there because it is something we did mention on recent episodes, him leaving the Fighting Nerds, and we didn't know if there was any kind of beef behind that split. It looks like there wasn't, because Caio was very happy to see Hufi get the win. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the fight itself, though. I thought this was one of the better fights of the night. What did you think of this one?
So out of all the fights that we called last week, this was the one that that I was the most insecure about.
Same.
I really didn't know.
Same.
And Fiziev came out there swinging with bad intentions.
He looked good in the first round. They both looked good in the first round, but yeah, it was close.
Was hitting his jabs almost at will, but he was taking his time between shots, and not dealing the damage that he needed to. When they got into the second round, Ruthie was hitting his jabs at will, and I even said sitting with you guys, he needs to turn this up. And then he came out with a flurry and finished it.
Yeah. It was really fun. It was a really good performance by Hoofy. You could see that he has been working on his output, because I remember like his last, was it his last fight? I think his most recent fight, the fight that he lost, the first fight that he lost in UFC, which was to Benoit Saint-Denis, who fought right after him on that night. It seemed like he just couldn't get his momentum going. He couldn't get his flow going. And I think that we saw that.
Very slow to start.
Right.
And he likes to pick his shots and really, really gauge his distance to the point of almost absurdity.
But then when he gets it, though, he gets it.
Yeah. But he's never going to be that first round knockout guy, because he likes to move slow, and that's going to be a weakness is moving forward.
Let's check that, actually. You bring that up about his pacing. I'm going to look at some of his wins here. So, yeah, his last fight he did lose. So his fight before that, he did get a first-round knockout, but then before that, it was third-round decision. Then he had a first-round, it was a late knockout. Then, let's see, third round, second round. So he does have a handful of first-round fight finishes, but they're against lower level competition. But you can see when he moves up in competition, yeah, it does seem to indicate that he does have a bit of a slower start than some other fighters might. But overall, it's still a good performance.
That championship fights are 5 rounds for a reason. If he can pace himself out and still manage to go for the kill within the first 3 rounds, he can go far. I'm just worried about when somebody pressures him early.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually how Benoit Saint-Denis beat him whenever they fought, because Benoit likes to push the pace. He is not a slow starter at all. Like, I think of the fight when he fought Dustin Poirier, and even though he lost that fight, he was just taken to Poirier early on. And when he fought Hoofy, he swarmed him, and Hoofy just couldn't get his composure and just eventually got finished off in the second round. Yeah. Now, whenever you do have that style, sometimes if you're going against someone who's more aggressive, sometimes if you're just patient, you let gas himself out, and then you can just come back really strong. Or you could be like the fighters in the next fight and just be gassed from beginning to end. Don't you love these heavyweight fights?
Man, I am the guy who constantly gets excited for heavyweight matchups, because it's always going to be the resurgence of the division. And what does Dana do to me? He throws out 2 guys who had to cut to make 265 and go for one-shot knockouts instead of actually being able to fight. By the 3rd round, they were both gassed. Gassed!
Like bad gassed. Like just could barely stand. And
it was pathetic. It was horrible. I don't know how Teixeira is 9-1.
I was literally just about to say that. I don't know how he is 9-1.
I know how Tuivasa is 15-9.
So let me tell you, if you go back and listen to the last episode, when we gave our quick thoughts on this episode, I had said that the lock of the night is Thales Teixeira and Tai Tuivasa. Because I thought all these other ones, especially the Hoofy fight and the Volkanovski fight, I thought in particular were really close to call. And even though I was pretty confident Saint-Denis was going to beat Hooker, I still knew the Hooker had a pretty good chance. But I was like, this is the lock of the night. Tai Tuivasa has basically just been a punching bag for the last 6 fights in a row. And Thales Teixeira is 1 fight shy of being undefeated. So I think Teixeira is just going to make quick work of Tai Tuivasa. And it was like a very slow-paced first round, a very slow-paced second round. And Tai Tuivasa almost ruined our 5-0 that we've been so desperate trying to get. And I would have actually been okay with that, just to see a really nice comeback from Tai Tuivasa, because Thales Teixeira had nothing left. Even though he hardly did anything, he had nothing left in him going into the 3rd round. So Tai Tuivasa finally started finding his shots, started like not necessarily dropping Taliesin Teixeira, but staggering him. Like, it hit him, and Teixeira would go like staggering, stumbling back and bouncing off the cage, and just was looking like he could barely keep his feet up. And I'm like, one good punch. If Tai just bum rushes him and just throws a wild looping punch that you don't even have to really aim much, you're probably going to end the fight. And everyone in the room was getting excited, like, just swarm him, just go, because we want to see Tai Tuivasa. We like him. He's a very likable guy. We want to see him in his losing streak, even though it had messed up our fantasy parlay. We would have loved to see it, but then Tai had nothing left either. He would land a couple of shots. Taliesin would just start wobbling, and like he would have his back turned to him, just kind of walking away, like just desperately trying to get to the cage just so he could keep upright. And that's when we thought that Tai was just going to swarm all over him. What did Tai do? Puts his hands on his hips, looks at him for a minute, starts breathing really heavy. It's like, what are you doing? We were just losing our minds watching this fight. So
I used to think that Tai's tattoos were cool. Now I realize he's just trying to hide his love handles.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I need to do that for my love handles. What tattoo should I get around my waist?
Get you a tribal love handle tattoo like your idol.
I'm not tribal. That would be cultural appropriation.
No, cultural appropriation is trying to pronounce the name of the guy in this next fight.
Well, I could pronounce these, but maybe I should get a blue belt because I'm the world's okayest blue belt. But then when I get a rank up, I'm gonna have to like do a cover up where it becomes purple and so on and so forth. That would suck.
Yeah, and then you've got to worry about when you get stripes.
I won't bother with the stripes. They're kind of unofficial anyway.
And get you a coral belt. They have to color everything in from black to red.
Coral's not going to happen. That ain't going to happen. I got into the game way too late for that.
Life ahead of you. It's going to happen.
You have to be a black belt for something like 40 years or some crazy number like that to get coral. And like by the time I get, if I even make it to black belt, I'm gonna be so old that I'm gonna be done with the sport. So coral will never happen. The coral, the red, white, red, black, all those ain't gonna happen. But speaking of jiu-jitsu black belts, at least I assume he's a black belt. So we kept talking about this next fighter who won first round. The last time we saw him fight, he gave us the ugliest knockout we've ever seen in many, many years. Quillen Salkilled, amazing head kick knockout. And then he surprises us by showing that he's not even a kickboxer first. He's actually a jiu-jitsu guy first. He takes Jamie Malarkey down, works some amazing jiu-jitsu, and gets him in a rear naked choke that ends up being more of a neck crank because the head's turned, but it's still sunk in like a rear naked choke. But it was executed so flawlessly, and I was like, wait, hold on a minute. This guy just gave us a really good kickboxing performance, so I'm thinking he's a high-level striker. Then he comes out and submits this dude, makes him tap out in the first round, 3 minutes into the first round. It's like, does this dude have everything in his toolkit? And then whenever he's getting interviewed, he said that he's a grappler first. Little did we know that this guy that we were raving about his amazing head kick is not even a striker first. He's just a grappler. And I just got to ask you, Roy, how much potential does Quillen Salkilled have that we just don't see yet?
He's going to be a problem in the lightweight division, and that's a hard division to be a problem in right now.
So he's unranked. Like I have the Wikipedia page up. He doesn't even have an official Wikipedia page open yet. I could pull up his stats on like Tapology or something, so I could look it up real quick. But I agree with you. Like I am worried for anybody that needs to fight this guy next. I think when we did a few episodes back talk about fighters to watch in 2026, I should have listed this man. He is currently 11-1. So when I bring up his Tapology, let's see here. He has.
While you're bringing that up, you know what I have written here as a note for this fight?
What's that?
Rear naked neck crank.
Yes. So his very first fight ever as a pro, he actually lost. And it was by a rear naked choke. He got submitted, but that was back in 2021. He hasn't lost since. He has 4 wins by KO, 4 wins by submission, 3 rounds by decision. So the decision wins, if he has 3 decision wins, tells me he could actually keep consistent pacing to the end of a fight. So it shows he probably has a good gas tank. 4 KOs, 4 submissions shows he has a pretty good split between striking and grappling. This dude seems to have it all, and it's very early.
Be a problem for the division, and that's a hard thing to say in the lightweight division.
It's very early to say, this is the next big thing. I hate to be that guy that hypes someone way too early, because I've made this mistake before, where I look at a guy who gets 1 or 2 good wins. I'm like, this is the next guy, and then he just gets demolished and goes on a losing streak, and then he disappears. I've seen that happen millions of times. But based off at least these last 2 performances, like, this dude is on fire. Like, he wasn't just squeaking by with wins. He is just demolishing people, and he's showing a very well-rounded skill set. And he's a really young guy. He is 26 years old. He was one of the last people ever born in the 90s. His birthday is December 28th, 1999. I have his Tapology up, and I just think it's funny looking at that date. I'm like, oh, he's a few days shy of being born in the 2000s.
You know who they need to feed him next?
Someone who's ranked. It's got to be someone ranked.
Michael Chandler.
I knew you were going to say Michael Chandler. I had it in my head. I'm like, he's probably going to say Michael Chandler.
This would be such an exciting fight.
It would be.
To see him and Michael Chandler go at it.
It would be. It would be very exciting. And look, even though we kind of hate on Chandler for being 2-5 in the UFC.
Chandler's got a bad fight IQ, but he's a fun fighter to watch. I'll never hate on him or call him scared.
He is a fun fighter, and he is a former Bellator champion. If you look at his recent fights, you think he's not that good. And maybe compared to your high-level lightweights in the UFC, maybe he's not at least anymore, because he's past his prime, I think. He's still good enough that if you're a lower ranking guy trying to work your way up, he's not someone you should take lightly. He is very experienced. I think that actually would be a good indication, a good indicator of Quillan Salkild's skills. Man, say that 3 times fast. Quillan Salkild's skills.
That wasn't even fast.
I know. Because if I said it fast, I would mess it up.
If you say it too fast, you summon a demon.
Be a really good way to see Quillan Salkild's skills. Quillan Salkild's skills.
You've just got to enunciate.
I can't. It would be a good indicator of the skills of Quillan Salkild. Put him against Michael Chandler. If he just barely beats him, I think he'd beat him. But if he loses, then we were just hyping him up too quick. If he wins, but barely, we're hyping him up too quick. I think if he has a good dominating performance, okay, let's put him against the top 10. That would be a good top 15, because Chandler's currently, where is he? I just had the
number 12.
I thought I had the rankings up. Apparently I don't. Okay, I'm glad you have him up.
Number 12.
How is he 12? I don't know. But still, he needs to fight someone ranked outside of the top 10. So yeah, Chandler's a good one. There's some other people you can put him against. Anyone who's 11 through 15, I think any of those would be fine. Let me pull those up. I could have sworn I just had that website up. I don't know what happened here.
Have them fight at the White House.
Let's see who else is ranked in the top 15 for lightweight. So yeah, you have outside the top 10, you have Dariush, Chandler, Manuel Torres, Hoofy. Hoofy honestly I think he should get someone that's in the top 10. So if you don't give him Chandler, if you don't give Quillan Salkild Chandler, I'd say Dariush or Torres or Zayam. I'm not too familiar with those guys. I know I've seen them fight, but I can't remember much of them. Dariush or Chandler, I think, would be good next fights. Give him someone ranked around there. If he wins one of those fights against one of those guys, put him against a top 10 guy and just keep going from there. So that, to me, was the performance of the night. I don't know if he got a bonus. Let's see here. Where are the bonus awards? Fight of the night was Volkanovski and Lopez. Performance of the night went to Hoofy and Salkild. So yeah, Salkild did get a performance of the night. In my opinion, that was the best performance of the card that I saw.
Not to mention the $25,000 finish bonus that Dana just put in place.
Yep. Good paydays if you don't grind out decisions.
I think it's just that Dana hates the judges, and this is a way to make them more useless.
Two birds with one stone. Now, I don't think there's much to say on the prelims of this fight. I didn't watch all the fights. The ones that I did watch, nothing too exciting happened, except for...
I watched one fight on the prelims anxiously because Junior Tafa was fighting, and I just knew that he was going to be someone to keep an eye on. So I watched with bated breath as he got submitted in round 2.
Yep. And I was actually going to talk about another fight. I watched, I think I watched like the last fight of the early prelims, and then I caught all the fights on the main prelims, but I was kind of like half paying attention. The first fight in the main prelims actually had something fun happen. Two fighters I've never heard of. Jonathan Mikalev went against Oban Elliott, and he won by technical submission. I was watching this. So Jonathan gets Oban in a rear naked choke, and it's deep. I could look and tell. It is perfectly lined up. It's under the chin. It's lined up just right. It's a proper blood choke. It's in deep. And you can see Oban Elliott is pulling the arms, trying to create some type of separation to, get that blood flowing again. And when he couldn't do it, he reached behind his head to punch a little bit in the face. Then he goes back to pulling on the arm, trying to, create some space again. And he kept doing that for about, 10, 15 seconds. Then all of a sudden goes limp. That's what happens.
And they call that a technical submission?
That's a technical submission. So a technical submission is when you lose by a submission hold, but you did not tap out. So there's two ways that can happen that I know of, at least off the top of my head. And that's if a limb breaks or you pass out. So we've seen a few times where like someone gets an arm lock, like when Frank Mir, I think has done it twice. When he fought Tim Sylvia, got him in an arm bar and broke his arm. And Tim Sylvia just wouldn't tap out because he's a maniac. Literally, that's his nickname. And then
breaking things.
Well, hold on. Let me finish. Well, let me finish this part real quick. So Herb Dean called it because he broke his arm and he stopped it. So it's a technical submission. Tim's like, I didn't tap. He goes, yeah, but your arm is broke. And then also Frank Mir, whenever he got Nogueira in a Kimura and snapped his arm in the upper part of the arm, and just the ref immediately called it. So that, or if you get put to sleep where you can't tap out because you go to sleep, that's another technical submission. All right. So what you're saying about breaking something?
Totally forgot when we were talking about Lopez Volkanovski.
Yeah.
Lopez broke both of his feet in this fight.
Apparently, he posted about it on social media. He was like, apparently I broke both of my feet. And I don't know how that works, how you break both your feet but continue fighting. How do you even break both of your feet? Like both of them?
I've done this. I crushed both talus joints on my feet, and it hurts, but you're still able to walk.
Ugh.
You feel it all the way up into your shins. It doesn't hurt in the feet. It's really weird.
Interesting. I've never had anything too extreme when it comes to lower body injuries. I had a torn tendon I was dealing with for I didn't realize how long torn tendons take to heal. Mine was over a year. I was going to physical therapy for a handful of months for that. And
Yep.
it's just a very long, I was still able to, use it. It's just like when I walk too much, it was in my ankle. And if I walk too much, my ankle would swell up. And it's because apparently I'd been walking around on a torn tendon for months and didn't realize it. And then when I did find out about it, it was just a long process of physical therapy. But even with that, the whole time it took, I think it was 14, 15 months before I felt like it healed up. And that's assuming it's fully healed up. I don't know because I haven't followed back up with the MRI to confirm it's healed up, but it seems fine. So I assume it's good, but I know for a fact it was over a year that I was still having issues walking on that thing.
Yep. Torn tendons are nothing to mess with. Those will kill the career, especially of someone in combat sports, instantly.
Yeah. Luckily, mine was a partial tear, and it was on the like the side of the ankle. So, and it was where there's like a cluster of tendons that are all kind of doing like the same job, just in different parts, because it's like a series of bands, and one of them had a partial tear. So I was doing physical therapy to strengthen the other tendon so it could like take over the work and give that tendon a break so it could heal itself. So that was my injury, but I've been pretty fortunate when it comes to lower body injuries. I have kind of shot knees, and my ankles aren't too great, but that's still not that bad compared to I know what a lot of people have gone through. My injuries that I go through in the combat sports world is mostly neck. Ever since I got that really bad injury where I messed up my neck, and I talked about that in an older episode, I did a video on it. My neck now, it's actually a little tweaked right now. If I have a really hard session and I just get pulled too hard in one direction, my neck might hurt for weeks. We're getting old.
You're not
man.
allowed to complain about injuries till you're a purple belt.
I'm not complaining. I'm reflecting and explaining.
That's black belt territory. You got a ways to go.
All right. Well, that's basically it for UFC 325. So next week we have a fight night headlined by Vinicius Oliveira and Mario Batista. And I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one, on who I think is going to win. I haven't really looked at this entire card. I think I'm going to go with, who do we think is going to win, Batista or Vinicius Oliveira? Man,
I think it's going to be Batista.
So I'm looking at Vinicius Oliveira's record, and he's actually 5-0 in the UFC. He's 23-3 overall. So it's a really solid record. But to be fair, none of these people he's fought are all that notable. So Batista is definitely going to be his toughest challenge. We can see if this is another hype train derailment. The rest of these fights are a bunch of people I don't really know, with the exception of, I know Jailton Almeida and Dustin Jacoby. That's the only other names I recognize on the main card. On the prelims, I recognize Saeed Nurmagomedov, who has a loss from Vinicius Oliveira. The rest of this card, let's see, Nico Price, I know that name. Most of these names I don't know. But Rick's favorite fighter, if you're listening, Rick, Jailton Almeida is fighting next week. You excited to see that? What about you, Roy? You ready to see Jailton Almeida fight? Especially after that amazing
Almeida get cut.
Especially after that amazing performance he had.
I mean, from the UFC.
I get you. I just think after that amazing performance he had against Volkov, we'd just be so excited to see him fight again, right?
But, on the fight with Batista, I think he's got it. The only person who's beat him in the last 5 years is Umar Nurmagomedov, and he fought him to a decision. That's tough.
Yeah, that is tough. I want to talk real quick a little bit more about this Jailton Almeida fight. I'm looking at his opponent, Rizvan Kuniev. Where's he from? He's from Russia. He's from Dagestan. All right. So this guy that
wrestling match.
So this guy that Jailton Almeida is fighting has an overall record of 12-3 and 1 draw and 1 no contest. He won a fight on the Dana White's Contender Series, which is not technically UFC. In the UFC, actual UFC, not Contender Series, he has 1 fight and he lost, and that was to Curtis Blades. So if he lost to Curtis Blades and now he's fighting another guy, how do you debut and pop up in the rankings this fast when it comes to your opponents, when you have other people that are fighting no-name people that have much better records? I don't know. That's another rabbit hole to go down.
Weak division.
But I'm just saying there are other people that are fighting that are much better. Like I keep talking about this guy, Mario Pinto. I've talked about him almost every episode for months now. And whenever they put him against people, they've put him against other no-name people. You have this guy who is making his debut against Curtis Blades, and then his next opponent is Jailton Almeida, both, top-ranked guys in the division. I don't really understand it. But anyway, all that being said, I have a little prediction here. Jailton Almeida, with his last couple of really crappy performances that people have not liked, and he has started to lose against decent opponents. And this guy, Rizvan Kuniev, who lost his debut match, I think whoever loses this fight, regardless, is getting cut from the UFC. That's my prediction. Whichever one loses.
Okay. And now I see two names that I have to hear you try to pronounce.
Okay.
Who's fighting in this middleweight fight after Almeida?
Middleweight. That is, it's easy. That's Michael Oleksiejczyk and Mark actually, I know that name. Barrialt. I know that one. Mikel. All right. So that one with the JCZUK makes me think of like Joanna Jančíček, who I call Jezdrek forever. So it's probably some weird pronunciation that doesn't make sense. So it's probably like McCall.
The bottom line on the eye chart when you're at the optometrist office
makes sense. I'm willing to bet when we watch these fights, we need to pay attention when they announce the names. I'm gonna guess based off of other Polish names. That has to be a Polish name. Let me confirm that real quick. Yeah, he's from Poland. Those are the hardest names to pronounce. Forget Russian names, forget Brazilian names. Polish names are the hardest ones to pronounce. Anyway, I'm willing to bet that when they pronounce his name, it's going to be something like Michal Oleksiejczyk. Probably something along those lines. How much you want to bet? I'm starting to get used to these weird foreign names.
Eventually, you'll be as good as Bruce Buffer.
Maybe. But I think it's more fun to get them wrong from time to time. That's why it was a few episodes back when we had a whole bunch of easy names pronounced. I started mispronouncing the easy ones just for funsies.
Wow.
So this next card that's happening next week, I think it's a pretty good main event. The rest of the card doesn't really impress me, but we'll tune in and we'll talk about it.
Well, there's one bantamweight fight that has a lot of potential. The Jean Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. Both these guys are essentially undefeated for the last 5 years. So,
interesting.
Well, Basharat's 14-0 and Matsumoto's 17-1.
And let's see, Basharat is, not counting the Contender Series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0 in the UFC. Okay.
So that'll probably be my out there. This is the one to watch if you can only catch something, early.
Yeah. But if you need to take a restroom break, feel free to do it during the Almeida fight. I mean, if you have a Dagestani wrestler going against Jalton Almeida, wouldn't it be wild if they both knew that the spotlight was going to be on them, or like a low light, I suppose, like the expectations are so low that people are talking bad about it. So they both decide, you know what, let's show we do have some skills, and they just go all out and give us like an unexpected barn burner. Wouldn't that be wild? I don't think it's going to happen, but
if Jalton Almeida gets fight of the night, I'll drink a beer from my shoe.
You're going to pull a Tai Tuivasa, pull out the shoe or the boot.
I can't really think of anything more disgusting than drinking a beer from your shoe. So,
yeah, I mean, the only thing I think of more disgusting,
I'm sure he uses a clean shoe when he does it.
The only thing I could think of that would be more disgusting than that is cheering when Almeida's fighting. Yeah, I went there.
Ooh, shots fired.
Well, I mean, I've been so polite for so long. Allow me to be a little mean from time to time. I could be a little mean-spirited when I want to.
Well, we saw against Volk that the refs aren't going to weigh controlled time as heavily as they have previously. And that's really going to hurt Almeida because he likes to get in position and stop working. Dagestani wrestlers, when they get in position, they're trying to advance position. I think that's going to be the difference between these two in this fight.
Yeah. It's kind of funny when you have fans like us that say things negatively about fighters. A lot of times people would jump up into defense of the fighters like, would you say that to their face? What do you think would happen if you said that to their face? Well, these are professional fighters. Of course, they would kick our butts. But when it comes to Jalton Almeida, I think it would be kind of a funny outcome because what would happen if you said this to Tom Aspinall's face and he got mad about it? I'm like, he'd probably knock me out in one punch. What would happen if you said this about, Khamzat Chimaev? I'm like, he'd probably drag me down to the ground and choke me unconscious. Well, what do you think would happen if you said this to Jalton and made his face and he got mad about it? I'm like, he'll probably lay on top of me for 15 minutes straight.
He'll hug you.
He'll hug me. He'll drag me down to the ground and just lay on top of me for 15 minutes.
He'll hug you aggressively.
He'll aggressively hug me.
Now, there's two different points in that question of what do you think would happen if you said this to their face?
Usually nothing.
Yeah, they could go ahead and beat your butt.
If they wanted to.
Second one is, would that deter you from saying it in the first place? And I pride myself at being the type of guy who would take the butt kicking, to be brutally honest. I
would say more often than not, these fighters aren't, because a lot of them have had fans, talking to their face. It's like, you're a nobody. Like, they'll just like, whatever, dude. They might say something back and then walk off. I've seen a video of it happening. It happens all the time. Rarely does a fighter get mad enough where they actually get physical.
Except for Rampage Jackson.
There's a few. There's a few that have, but I'm just saying that most of the time they just shrug it off. They don't care. But I'm just saying if they did get mad, if I did say
Rampage
something to...
It's confrontational.
Yeah. But I'm thinking like these other fighters, like if these fighters did get mad and want to do something, if Sergey Pavlovich got mad at me, I'm probably going to have a broken jaw. If, Islam Makhachev got mad at me, I'm probably going to have a crushed windpipe. If Almeida got mad at me, I'd probably be on my back for 15 minutes. That sounded very... we're not going to go there. Anyway, that was the Ground and Pound Cast episode for the breakdown of UFC 325. Tune in next week, and we will be talking about this fight night, Mario Batista versus Vinicius Oliveira, taking place in, I guess this is Las Vegas? It's Enterprise, Nevada.
Ooh.
What the heck's Enterprise? I don't even know that one. At first I thought Enterprise was like the venue. Never heard of that place.
I got a car from them once.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.